Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Tyler Adolfo. I am 26 years old, and I am an alcoholic. I'm making this video because a couple viewers requested that I share my experiences about my alcohol addiction and recovery process. And so here I am doing exactly that. Today is actually the 2-year anniversary of the last time that I had a sip of alcohol. As of the filming of this video, January 6th, 2024, the last time I had a drink was January 6th, 2022. So I've been clean for 2 years, and it was a tremendously difficult process. But I don't want to start the story in the middle. So in today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by talking about where my drinking began, and then I will talk about how I became addicted, and as we go along, I'll talk about the myriad of consequences I experienced as a result of this addiction, and then we'll end off with where I am today as far as the recovery process, how I'm feeling, do I still have urges, that sort of thing. John Adams said that facts are stubborn things, and the fact of the matter is I had a major problem with drinking. Alcoholism is something that runs in my family. My family tree is littered with men who died of young ages due to succumbing to their alcoholism, and I don't say that lightly. I'm very well aware that this could have turned out the same way for myself, and I'm just eternally grateful that I was able to pull myself out of this terrible habit before it became too late, because I truly do think that I was heading down a path where recovery was not possible. When did I have my first drink? It was in college, and the bulk of what I talk about in this video will be my college experiences. The first time I had a drink was at a college party, and it was from a keg. I had beer from a keg at the Tau Kappa Epsilon frat at UMass Amherst in Massachusetts. I know, super specific. But, I remember standing in line, feeling excited. I'm going to have my first drink ever. I finally have that sense of autonomy. I'm off on my own and doing things for myself, and I'm at a party and I'm just trying to fit in, hopefully get a hot girl to spend the night with. I get to the front of the line, get my beer from the keg, and let's just say it wasn't my only beer that night. I ended up returning to the keg numerous times. I can't even give a specific number. I lost count. Thankfully, I didn't black out. At least at that party, I did not black out, but I would experience my first blackout at a different college party, and that would be at the Pi Kappa Phi fraternity, also at UMass Amherst. And this one really sticks with me because I do remember exactly what I was drinking, and it had a major consequence the very following day. I was at a college party, and I remember chugging a Four Loko, and, people were cheering me on, and I just felt so adulated. I felt like I was a rock star because I was chugging alcohol. And, college kids, one of the many idiosyncrasies they have is that they root for stupidity. And I know I'm not categorizing all college kids in the same place, but I would say most. Certainly the type that attend frat parties. We cheer for stupidity. Like, oh, you're chugging vodka? Good for you. You're chugging a Four Loko? Good for you. So I chugged a Four Loko on top of having other alcoholic drinks that night. And I would end up blacking out. And my memory fades in and out going forward. I remember stumbling home in the darkness at like 3 a.m. and there were other college students on the street. It was like a bunch of college kids walking around, stumbling around, trying to get back to our dorms. It was like a zombie apocalypse the way that we were walking. And the next memory I have is waking up in a puddle of puke the following day. I mean, it was already 3 a.m. when I was walking home, but when I eventually woke up, it was well past the time that I was scheduled for my shift as a line cook downtown. And as a result, I ended up losing my job due to alcohol. It was a consequence as a direct result of my alcoholic consumption. But this wasn't just a one-off thing either. There would be many more consequences going forward. COVID hit, and my drinking actually stopped completely during COVID. And I guess a big part of that was the fact that I was no longer in the college environment, that college setting of feeling peer pressure, of wanting to fit in, of wanting to have that sense of belonging. So I went about a year without drinking at all, but my drinking would resume in the spring semester of 2021 when we went back to campus. When I returned to campus, I was again seeking a sense of belonging, and I went to many rush parties at different Greek life organizations on campus, and I started to drink at the different rush parties. I had Jungle Juice at Alpha Sig. I had my very first experience with a funnel at ZBT. And again, you have more of college kids with their idiosyncrasy of rooting for stupidity. People cheering for me while I gush down alcohol from a funnel. And the other fraternity, and the one that I actually ended up joining, Kappa Sigma, was the other one where I ended up consuming tons of alcohol. They had a Jungle Juice as well. So I ended up getting a bid to join the Kappa Sigma fraternity. And for those of you who don't know how pledgeship works, you are subject to intense levels of hazing. I would say 95% of fraternities engage in hazing, even though all of them say that they don't. But in my case, ours was very heavily concentrated around alcohol hazing. And so my drinking naturally escalated during my pledgeship experience. My first beer that I had as a pledge, I remember this was on bid night, we were all in like a supply closet upstairs, and we were taken out one by one, blindfolded, brought down to the basement, and somebody hops off like a bench that's off to the side, and someone behind us takes the blindfold off, and the guy who hops off the bench says, "Shotgun this fucking beer." And we would hear those words many more times over the course of that pledgeship, over the course of that semester. And over the course of that semester, the drink in particular that we were involuntarily made to drink was Ruby. Ruby is incredibly strong. We would drink voluminous amounts of it during lineups and so forth. And I think this is when I really started to pick up drinking as a coping mechanism for depression and stress. The stress of pledging itself, of being sleep deprived, of having to meet the demands of so many brothers in the fraternity, really took its toll on me. And in addition to the drinking I was doing as part of pledge activities, I actually started to drink outside of pledge activities as a way to cope with the stress of what we were all going through. So as you can imagine, the blackouts continued. There's one in particular I remember, and that was wine night. And I once again would wake up in a puddle of puke in my dorm from wine night. And I ended up missing an important meeting as a result of that for my Masonic fraternity. So, lots of more Jungle Juice was consumed. During Hell Week, I remember I chugged an entire bottle of vodka. And Eventually, we were initiated safely, thank God, made it to the end of the process. The summer after pledgeship, the drinking came home with me. It didn't stop once I left college for break. And it manifested in a few different ways. I remember working at the Indian Ranch concert venue, and I would bring fireballs, the shots, stuff them in my pockets, and I would drink them throughout my shift. And at this point, I was drinking just because I was addicted to alcohol. And even though I would have been in denial if anybody were to confront me about that at that particular point in time, it was abundantly true. It was the absolute truth. It was so self-evident by the way that I was behaving, the degree to which I was drinking, that I was addicted at that point in time, so much so that I felt the need to drink and be drunk at work, with no regard for how it would affect my productivity and so forth. And then at home, I would drink Four Logos. That became my drink of choice, along with Not Your Father's root beer, which I would say only further intensified my drinking habits because it's a drink that tastes literally like a soda. It has an absurd amount of sugar in it, and it tasted exactly like a soda, and I would get drunk off of those at home, just every day of the week. I would get drunk Monday through Sunday. Summer ended, and I actually moved into the frat house for the fall semester of 2021. And once again, my drinking came with me, my drinking habit, which at this point was an addiction. And I would drink before class and after class. There's one memory I have in particular where a brother said to me, "Tyler, you're seriously drinking today?" And I said, "Of course I'm drinking. It's Saturday." And it says, "Tyler, it's not Saturday. It's a Wednesday." So my drinking got to the point where I didn't even know what day of the week it was. That's how completely out of it that I was. My drinking would increase even more with the onset of my mania. For those of you who are new to my channel, I have many videos where I talk about mental health. And specifically, I have a diagnosis of bipolar type 1 with psychotic features. And during the semester of college, I had a major manic episode that lasted about 5 months. Plenty of videos on my channel where I talk about that if you're interested. I'm just mentioning that because this would affect my drinking activity. I started experiencing delusions and hallucinations from my mania, and I would start drinking as a way to cope with that reality. Not the healthiest choice by any means, and as my mania intensified, as my drinking intensified, people started to distance themselves from me. I wasn't a nice person to be around. I wasn't a fun person to be around. I then started to drink to cope with the loneliness. So it's almost like every action that I took, it would have a reaction from other people, and then I would have a response to that of more drinking. And this ultimately culminated at the end of the semester of me getting into a fight. Now, I was not drunk during the fight, but I did have a drink that day. And I remember testing 0 on the breathalyzer, so I wasn't drunk. I was just super manic and being impaired by my bipolar disorder. But I got into a fight, I got arrested, I got charged, and the courts ordered me to get treatment as a condition of my release from jail. And once I got out of jail, which was 5 days later, I started going to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. And I gotta say, and I cannot stress this enough, those meetings did more to help me than any amount of treatment that I got from the dual diagnosis program I enrolled in, psychiatry, so to speak. The psychiatrist diagnosed me with alcohol use disorder in addition to the bipolar diagnosis, but it wasn't anywhere near as helpful as the Alcoholics Anonymous meetings where I could hear other people's stories, hear their wisdom, hear their solutions, their coping strategies, and it really just sat with me. And so I started treatment in two forms, going to a dual diagnosis program and attending Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. And as a result of this, I have been completely clean since January 7th of 2022. The last time I had a drink was January 6th of 2022 when I got into that fight, which I'll talk more about in a different video as well. So there were many consequences to my alcohol addiction. I lost jobs. Relationships with family and friends were fractured because I just wasn't a kind person. I wasn't myself when I was drunk. There were many times that I blacked out, which I'm sure took its toll on my health in some form. Let's just put it this way. There were many, many, many times that I blacked out during my pledgeship in particular. But the drinking intensified and continued as time went on. Even when I wasn't being forced to drink, I chose to drink. But thankfully, I'm at a point now where I'm 2 years into my recovery and still going strong. And I consider recovery to be a lifelong process because it can be so easy to be tempted and to resort back to picking up a drink again. Me, I don't want to touch alcohol at all because I don't know if I can trust myself. And I don't want to be to that point where I feel like my life is dependent on alcohol again. And for anyone else out there struggling with this addiction, I want you to know that you can do this. And it's not your fault. Understand that this is a crazy world. I get it. And there are other coping mechanisms to deal with the crazy realities of this world. But it's not your fault that the world is crazy. But all of us are empowered to make healthier, better choices for ourselves and our loved ones. And that's what I decided to do and what I'm going to continue doing going forward. I learned very clearly, very astutely why the indigenous peoples of North America refer to alcohol as fire water. It destroys life and everything associated with it. There's truly no benefit derived from drinking alcohol, especially with how addictive it is and how easy it is to become addicted. So that's it. That's my story. I am an alcoholic. I had a dependence on alcohol at one point in my life. It was tough for me to quit. I'm at a point where I don't have cravings anymore, so that's really good. But that's my story, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button and check out the other videos on my channel. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. I appreciate you continuing to watch my videos. I hope that you all have an extraordinarily excellent day. Peace out, y'all.